Well, folks, we get a lot of questions about where and how and when to prune the herb plants. So not just like your basil, but your rosemary, your oregano, your chives, your parsley. Some of them are different, like your leafier things like your chives, your parsley, your cilantro, and so forth. Those kind of things send up a whole new shoot, which we'll get to in just a minute. Other things are from stem, basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, lavender, those kind of things. So you can generally group things. It's not all specific to exactly what it is, but let's get started with ever popular basil. So basil plant starts out quite nice and small. Got a few leaves on there. Put it into the ground or into a container, then it will restart, on the growing side. Do bear in mind, all of this works on the premise of your roots and your top growth of your plants will work in tandem. More roots, more top growth, more roots, more top growth. On the herb plants, you've bought them to feed you with flavor. So the more often you're cutting on the top growth, the more often it's just sending out more fresh top growth, whether it's a container or in the ground. Obviously in a container, you're really not interested too much about more and more and more roots. So again, if you're always cutting on the top growth, it's not having to put out more and more roots, it just puts out more fresh top growth. Well, what about a rosemary or a lavender that you obviously want to be perennial? You do want that root growth, and yes, for sure. So out in the yard, space all of its own, rosemary will get very big. You're cutting on the tips, making it branch and bush, and enjoying that fresh foliage, fantastic. In a container, however, you don't need a very large rosemary or a large thyme plant or an oregano. So again, more in a container, you're keeping everything very, very small. That will keep it fresh and that will keep it tasty as well, and productive in the sense of it's putting out more fresh foliage for you all the time, and you're cutting on it weekly. So basil plants will get very, very tall, about 2 foot tall, big, lot of leaves. At that point though, it's basil, whereas you want sweet basil. You want it fresh, you want it tender, you want it tasty. Keep it about 8 to 10 to 12 inches tall, and just keep cutting on it. And again, the branching and the bushing, at that point, it will be more flavorful for you as well. You do want to avoid on your basils the flower. It grows the leaves to get to a place where it can put out the flower, because then it can focus on putting out the seed. That's what it's designed to do. So if you keep it cut, you will keep it from getting to that end, and it will just keep producing nice, tasty, fresh foliage for you. So these working from tips, you're going to cut just above the branch in here. So if you get this one here, where my thumb is there, just above that branching that you can see down here, that's where you'll cut it. So you'll cut there. These two stems either side will take over and they will continue to grow. So branching and bushing, when you cut low like that, the branching and bushing will make that plant sturdy, able to support more foliage. But again, keeping everything short will keep it tasty and tender. This is what you want. You don't want it to get to the place of a bloom. You want it to continue to produce leaves for you, keeping it cut and short. So that, again, on the stem, those are ones you'll cut where the branching is. Other ones, like your parsley, your chives, your dill, cilantro, they'll send up a whole new shoot. So unlike a basil, where you prune the leaf and that stem then branches off and produces more, on a parsley or a dill or a cilantro, they'll actually send up whole new shoots. And you can see down in here where those new leaves are, the older leaves are at the top, the new leaves are coming out of the crown, so that'll actually send up a whole new shoot. So on that side, the stem is edible too. You can go ahead and use that when it's tender and fresh. So when you prune, usually you prune out pieces and chunks of it, and it will just regrow. So about 1 inch from the ground, that's where you'll go ahead and cut your bunch that you're going to use, and then it will continue to regrow as you work your way around it. Some little nuances, the thyme. Thyme obviously works from stems like your basil, your oregano, but has very small leaves, very small stems. So what you do is you take it, you'll go ahead and give it a haircut, about the top third of it at a time, and that's what you'll use. So if you have a lot of thyme, you can take the leaves off or just chop it up nice and fine, especially when it's tender and fresh like this. Use leaf and stem all together. So again, you just take the bunch, the area that you want to cut, you'll cut the top third. All of these things, again, working on the premise of the more often you're cutting on them, the healthier, happier, tastier they're going to be. So hopefully that helps. We'll hope to see you out at the farm soon.